You know, I've watched a lot of sprinting in my lifetime. I've seen great athletes come and go. I've seen the stars align to bring us one of the greatest moments in sprinting history. I've seen Usain Bolt become the undisputed GOAT over and over again. And I've also recently witnessed a young Jamaican shake a 3-year curse and pull off a huge win in the World Champs. I have had the good fortune of witnessing some of the top sprinting moments in history over the past few decades, but no matter what I've personally seen, or no matter how many times I have seen it, I still find myself confused, dumbstruck, and at a loss for words when watching the one and only Fred Curley from the United States. And this man continues to confuse me as each day continues. Now, make no mistake, on paper, Curley is one of the greatest sprinters to ever live. He dropped a 9.76 in the 100 back in 2022. He then went on to win the World Champs just a few months later. He's now a 2-time Olympic medalist in the 100, and he's also one of only 3 athletes to ever go under 10 in the 100, under 20 in the 200, and under 44 in the 400 meters. Curley's talents unquestionably make him one of the most versatile and elite hybrid sprinters in all of running, and whenever this man gets his racing right, he becomes a nearly unstoppable force in sprints. But what has recently been taking place with Fred Curley is just so strange and so impossibly weird that I can barely even believe my eyes at times when seeing these events unfold. Now, I'm sure that many of you have already seen the news that Fred Kerley has decided to join the Enhanced Games in 2026, which is a league that allows for performance-enhancing drug use in order to reach the highest performance possible. This league has recently made some pretty big headlines, as it's naturally controversial in nature, but it also has some huge cash prizes for world record performances. However, for Fred Kerley, his induction into this new league also came with quite the stir, as he was recently suspended from track and field for whereabouts failures, given that he missed 3 drug tests within a 12-month window. Needless to say, suspicions about Curley's drug use climbed to an all-time high after this initial suspension was announced, and him joining this league was more or less confirmation that something fishy was actually going on. And while it was certainly shocking to see such a high-profile world champion join this league, his recent activity since this announcement has only pushed him further and further away from reality. After announcing this new contract with the Enhanced Games, Curley has made some pretty bizarre posts about building his empire. He's made references to trillion-dollar deals, so look out Musk, Fred Curley is coming. He's discussed how the world just is not ready for his greatness, and he also posted his new racing goal in the 100, as he posted about Project 9.42 and how it's officially underway. Now, we recently talked about this 9.42 in the 100, and we talked about how impossible such a time actually is. It really doesn't matter how much product you pump into your body, it doesn't matter what shoes you're running in, and it also doesn't matter who you're racing against. A 9.42 in the 100 is just not going to happen right now. And even though it seemed like Fred Curley was already reaching into completely unattainable marks just for clicks, he has now taken it one step further, stating that for next year's Enhanced Games, he wants a private jet, and underneath it, he wants 9.2 written on the bottom, referencing yet another completely unattainable mark in this primary sprinting discipline. This man just cannot stop. Needless to say, a 9.2 in the 100 is so far beyond impossible that it barely even means anything. I've seen rage bait before, I've seen overconfidence being projected into impossible marks, but this is just sad. It is one thing to reference a quick time and set a lofty goal for your next season, but to continue to state these kind of impossible marks that are light years ahead of the world record of Usain Bolt is just painful to witness. To make matters even worse, these kind of lofty projections are coming after Fred's worst season to date, because in 2025, he only broke 10 in the 100 once with legal wind. He struggled for much of the year, especially during the Grand Slam meetings, and after seeing him get into relatively decent fitness moving into the national championships, he ultimately withdrew from the United States Nationals, meaning that he wasn't even eligible for the US team at Worlds. Now, perhaps Fred's decision to join the Enhanced Games came as a last-ditch effort to gain some kind of clout and relativity in the sporting world. After such a bad season and his new pending suspension, Curley needed to have some kind of change in order to stay relevant, as he was facing at least a 2-year ban with World Athletics. But over-exaggerating like this, and stating completely impossible times, to me at least, screams to the fact that Curley is projecting many of his insecurities into these strange posts. And while I already think that Curley will not even get close to Bolt's record in 2026, there's another reason why this upcoming season is likely to fall incredibly short of a 9.58. Here's the full season for Fred Kerley in 2024. Now, after struggling for much of the early year, Kerley clutched up and made the Olympic team for Paris, and after qualifying for the US team, he went on to win the bronze medal in 9.81 in one of the most competitive 100 races in history. Kerley's bronze medal in 9.81 seconds came in the latter half of his 2024 campaign, meaning that he worked for months and months to finally reach this elite racing mark. Now, if we take Fred Kerley's 2024 season, we can see that he worked for much of the year in order to finally hit this Olympic medal standard. And if we compare this season to Fred Kerley's upcoming 2026 Enhanced Games season, we see something quite interesting. Well, there you have it. Unlike every other season in track and field, the Enhanced Games isn't even a season. There's no build-up, there's no qualification. It is just one event with one opportunity at one location. When it comes to sprinters reaching their best times, it is a universal fact that you need races under your belt moving into those big moments. In order to really be race sharp and race ready, getting experience from other races is almost a requirement. For Curley, his set plan is to go into 2026 with his new training and likely new substances in his system, and without any previous races or experience next season, he's somehow going to not only break Bolt's 9.58, but he's going to run a 9.42. Or, wait, he's set to run a 9.2. Excuse me, I got the times mixed up there. Not having races under your belt to pull from is like showing up to a tennis match without a racket. It is just not a good idea. For the Enhanced Games, there is a $1 million prize pool for breaking Usain Bolt's record, and I personally think that this is just a stunt at this point. I cannot imagine a world where this kind of time actually goes down. Also, and this only further proves the point that racing gets you more and more sharp, but for Bolt's record back in 2009, his 9.58 also came towards the end of his season, as he ran this time at the World Championships in August of that year. Make no mistake, taking performance-enhancing drugs can make you faster, as we have seen many people improve their times by pumping their body full of drugs. But here's one last thing to think about in regards to breaking Usain Bolt's record. To this day, the fastest athlete to ever receive a doping suspension was Tyson Gay from the US back in 2013. And for this season, he was suspended for 1 year for a doping violation. Now, this certainly caused a stir in the sprinting world, and if we look to his fastest time ever, we can see that he ran a 9.69 back in September of 2009, meaning that even at his absolute best, he was still more than a 10th away from the world record. Even if you find a PED that could boost your performance significantly, there would still be a gap between you and Usain Bolt. And this leads me to the inevitable conclusion that even with the newest and most novel drugs imaginable, Fred Kerley will not be breaking Usain Bolt's record in 2026, and these times of 9.42 and 9.2 are honestly just jokes. And now I would love to hear from all of you. What do you take away from Fred Kerley's posts? What do you take away from this 9.42 and this recent 9.2 projection? And what do you think is going to happen with the Enhanced Games in 2026? Do you think a record is potentially set to fall, or will they get nowhere near Bolt's mark? Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.